But starting things off with the dollar, things was looking pretty bearish yesterday, but we have flipped. I've been talking about push back into the low for USD back into 98, and at one point it looked like that's where price was headed. However, we have flipped around. Price is looking quite bullish this morning, and we basically failed to break through that support level. It was a slight break, but nothing confident, especially with the big wick there. That is a big red flag, and of course followed by this momentum. It does look like support is holding pretty well. So with momentum shifting, if I hop into the 8-hour chart, if we were to see a strong shift in the next close there, I wouldn't be surprised if we do go through another up move. I'm not necessarily favoring a reversal. You know, the current trend on the DXY is still very much with the bears. If I zoom out, look at the bigger picture, you know, still very much on a downward spiral here. So I would still be pretty bearish for the dollar, but the fact that we are rejecting the support on 3 occasions, especially the last one, does invite some upside there. How much? Not too sure because I wouldn't be looking for anything too big, because my expectation would still be we might rally, but to form another low high to come back down again, which could still be a profitable move. Of course, maybe we do reverse. That's of course a possibility. But I am skeptical how far this move will go. So far, rejection looking very strong, so I do think more upside is likely. But how much upside? Because I'm still bearish on the dollar. Yeah, I'm not confident about a big move. Same thing with euro. We did fail the highs here. Again, with euro being very corrective, failing the highs, we could still go for a bit of a drop here. You know, this is still our last major high or low in the market. So technically speaking, we could drop, you know, all this way, still find another high or low and still push on. And judging how corrective price is, I wouldn't be surprised if we were to do that. We're kind of operating within this channel now. You know, this could be an area which price does gravitate towards to possibly buy back up again. So USD, looks like we are seeing some strength, which potentially could last today. Of course, we do have NFP today, so a lot can change, to be honest, because depending how the dollar reacts, all this momentum could easily be reversed this afternoon. But at the moment, we've got to play with what we have been dealt. And at the moment, seeing that rejection there as well, shift in momentum, it does look like to me that we probably could see some downside for a few hours. Again, I'm not expecting a huge sell-off. I'm still bullish on euro, still bearish on USD. So my targets are still back at the high at 1.156. But perhaps we do go through some type of correction before we do get there. So I'd watch out for that. Again, I'm not really interested in the sell because I still would anticipate it to be a pullback. I do think the bigger move is still to the upside for now. But again, we'll see what happens with NFP because all of that analysis could go out the window pretty quickly. Pound USD, however, very strong candle close. It does look like price is rejecting the highs. Now, with Pound USD, I'll be a bit more skeptical with this one because we are still quite overbought and price is failing at the highs there. I would stay bullish on Pound as long as we stay above this level. If price was to form like a double top here and crash back below, well, I would chalk this to a fake out. And pullbacks and then more downside would be my expectation for Pound if we were to get back below 1.34, that is. So, of course, we're still a long way away from that. But that is a real possibility there for Pound USD. So I would be careful with that. Looking at Pound now, looking at that closure, looks like we're kind of breaking out this this ascending channel here as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if we were to push back into support here, which again could be a nice move within itself. But if we do hold, I still think the bigger move is to the upside. So for now, Pound USD not looking good. Expecting to see some downside, similar with euro, expecting to see some downside. Of course, USD is looking pretty bullish. We'll see what NFP has in store, but the technicals are definitely pointing down at the moment. Strong rejection of the high. I like the wick, and a strong close below that trend line. It is definitely a bearish signal there. So Pound USD not looking too good at the highs. Overall, the uptrend is bullish, but yeah, it does look like the market is pausing. Dollar CAD similar, but not as strong with the closure. We've just about hopped into this area, so I am becoming a bit more interested with the buys for dollar CAD, to be honest. As we come back into this consolidation where price did rally from, I am interested to see if I can find some buying opportunities in there. And of course, the market's had a big sell-off there, so we are a little bit stretched. And naturally, I do expect to see some type of pullback, and I might look to try and take advantage of that if my confirmations are met. I can see we're starting to lose momentum, becoming a bit more corrective, which is a good sign. Again, I would like to see price come a little bit deeper into that area before buying, so something like this would be good, and then maybe a big double bottom or some type of reversal pattern I'll be keeping my eye on. So not quite there yet for dollar CAD, but of course this morning with that close, it is implying some bullish momentum coming back into the market. Of course, we just had a look at the USD, which is looking pretty strong as well. So perhaps we do see some upside, but I'll still be wary as we come back into these areas where I would expect sellers to try and push us back down again. So dollar CAD, in terms of the immediate price action, yes, looking bullish, but structure still pointing down, so I would still stay bearish for this pair until we get back into the zone. Then perhaps there might be some buying opportunities on the way. But until then, I do still fancy a bit of an up move for some more downside for dollar CAD. Onto Aussie dollar, excuse me. Aussie dollar, another rejection at the high. This one's just being so corrective. It's absolutely beyond me. We've just been operating within this channel. It looks like price is really failing at the highs here. So to me, it looks like Aussie dollar potentially running out a bit of steam as well. Could be looking at a bit of a move to the downside there too. Typically in these big ascending channels, I'm always looking for price to break lower. Hence why I'm still waiting for, a buy around this area, 0.625, 0.626. This is an area where I do feel like a major high low could present. On the daily chart, you got the left shoulder, head, looking at the right shoulder over there. So that massive head and shoulder pattern, looks really interesting to me. So if we can break lower, which I'm waiting for and have been for some weeks now, if we were to get there, brilliant. If not, it's not really a pair I'm looking at whilst we operate in these areas. As I mentioned yesterday, I think there still could be a nice buy at the low of the channel. The market has been respecting it on numerous occasions. So it's going to take a lot of momentum, a lot of energy for price to actually break through this. And if you can see strong rejection when price gets there, then that should present a nice buy. So I would keep an eye on that area there. And it looks like we're failing at the highs anyway, so I think there's a good chance we do see a push back down to that low. New Zealand dollar, again, a pair which I've been looking to buy on a breakout, but just not seeing that momentum that fills me with confidence when I'm looking to follow this. Technically, we did see a break of this resistance. That was the plan coming into the week, looking for a strong break of this resistance, a retest, then some more buys. We had the first breakout on Monday, Tuesday. That turned to be a bit of a fake out. Price closed back below. Then we had another breakout on Thursday. However, again, leaving behind some big wicks to the upside, not the sign of a confident breakout. I want to see strong closures, big candles breaking through a level, not smallish candles with exaggerated wicks. That is not a good sign. So we are technically retesting, and potentially price might find support here, but it's just not a quality setup for me to entertain. I want to see a much more commanding break of that level, more momentum, and quite frankly a bigger breakout as well. So I'm going to avoid this opportunity. I know it's retesting now. I mean, we haven't really had much of a rejection yet, so we're still waiting for that. But because of how we've had the breakout, it does lower the probability and the quality of the setup. So I'm going to stay away from New Zealand dollar, especially if USD is going to see some strength. Probably would expect us to break to the downside there. So I'll be a bit watchful there for ends the USD. I wouldn't sell it, but I wouldn't buy it either. A bit in between a rock and a hard place there. In terms of gold, so gold, big rejection yesterday. Of course, we've got the big breakout of the channel. We had that at the start of the week. So that set the tone for gold in terms of being bullish and looking for more upside. I spoke about the retest of this area for a buy, which we just missed. There we go. by a small margin. Unfortunately, did miss that, and price had a nice reaction. Of course, in hindsight, we can see price didn't really go anywhere. We're still stuck at the highs here, which, yeah, does make things a bit awkward now with gold. Because I'm still bullish on this market. I'm still looking for a push back to the all-time high, 3,500 up at the highs here. That's still my expectation. However, we are starting to lose that momentum. So I think the next best opportunity for gold would just be waiting for price to clear the highs and see some momentum above that, because that will kind of reinstate the bullish trend, the momentum, and then some retests at the high would make sense for a breaking retest, of course. And I think that could be a nice trade there. So gold, I'm still bullish. We're looking a bit flat right now, which isn't necessarily a red flag. Just the market's consolidating. If we see a sharp break to the upside, the trend's looking healthy again, and I'll be expecting a push back to the highs. But I would refrain looking from for an entry in this area now, because we tried to break the highs. We technically did, but we didn't sustain them and provided the big wicks. That is a sign that the buyers are failing. So seeing them break the resistance would be a sign that, okay, buyers are back in control, momentum is back with the buyers, a retest, and then some buys will make a lot of sense there. So that's the best I can see now for gold. Market's a bit flat, but if we can see momentum come back in, I think that's a solid buy opportunity. And silver is looking absolutely bullish right now. I was talking about the retest of this area early in the week. Did not see that happen. And now I'm talking about the retest of this area. Of course, hasn't happened yet, but price still may come back down there for a retest. And of course, if I zoom out to the daily time frame, you can see we've broken through a major swing high, major level of resistance. So I can still see price coming back for a retest of that level. But yeah, silver looking very bullish. I've talked about 40 in terms of the big psychological level. That could be the next big target for silver. I wouldn't be surprised if that's where we're going to be headed towards with this next bullish cycle. But the market, in fairness, has been consolidating for quite some time now. So I'm expecting momentum to come back into the market and a lot more upside. So the plan here with silver is just waiting for some healthy pullbacks, find some higher lows, and then hopefully ride that trend.